serious. And Jason already gave me one. I think it's fantastic. For what? For Static Studios.
Right here.
No, but this is going to be an actual physical place where you can come in and actually like do your art, and then I'll have a gallery next door that you can showcase it. I mean, you know, because I was talking about this in our thing. For a trigger.
I'm gonna jump off the ledge and see what happens. Yeah. That's my I always say, if jump with you, your kids jump with you. Yes, we do.
I'm still finishing the front. Oh, did you? And that's why you don't use time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks all for being here. Kind of because we forced you, but that's okay. It's a good thing. Yeah. We have with us James Burton, who is a creator for Scatter Comics and actually has been in the comic industry for over 20 years, has a lot of experience to share with you. He was here previously, a couple years ago. I actually had it in this charge room, but we are bringing it to you here because not only this is obviously we do a lot of the speaking engagements and things like that, but we also have Scooter here who is live streaming this event through Tiny Tabletop here. Scooter. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and give it up for James Burton and talking about comics and writing and creating overall. Very good. Oh, one of these.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I apologize. I did not bring the right cable, so I can't show you guys all my awesome comic book work on the monitor. Apparently, I'm too stupid to remember what a mini cable is, and I brought the wrong one. Now, after that, besides that, though, what I wanted to talk about today isn't really about artwork. It's more about being creative. Everybody in here is either a writer or a visual artist, right? Oh, the enthusiasm is sucking wind. All right. So here's the deal. I'm a little bit more enthusiastic than that. And if you guys aren't going to shake and nod your heads, I may as well go back to my car. So here's the deal. Everybody in here is a creative one type or another, right? Yeah. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now, here's the deal. That first enthusiasm, that one right there, the one where you held it back, that part of you, if you let that answer for you every time somebody talks to you about creative, you're screwed. Okay? I'm serious. What I'm going to talk to you guys about today is the fact that the world and the way it's set up for creatives is changing, but there are still certain basic rules. Rules that I wish to God somebody had smacked me in the head with when I was your age. Badly. Okay? You've probably heard a whole bunch of adults tell you, oh, the internet didn't exist when I was your age. I had to do this. I had to actually go to the library. Bibliographies took me 6 hours, whatever they wanted to tell you. But take that logic there for a second and imagine you're trying to figure out a career that is completely and totally possessed by gatekeepers that live on the other side of the continent, that the only way you have access to is to going to conventions, tracking them down while they're in the bathroom, and asking them questions in a very inappropriate manner. That was what it was like to break into the comic books in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and the 50s. There are stories now and documentaries about how hard it was for all kinds of people and how dirty, shady, underhanded things happened and screwed people over. Everybody here's seen a Marvel movie, right? Mm-hmm. Who gets all the cameos? Who's in every movie? Stan Lee. Stan Lee was a writer. As a matter of fact, most of his life he was considered a hack writer, meaning that he wrote certain basic things, that he wasn't a genius. He didn't even like his own writing. He started off writing horror comic books. That company was shut down by the federal government for for messing up young children's minds. They shut down 4 or 5 of the companies for obscenity guidelines and created the Comic Book Code Authority, forcing them to change. Stan Lee ended up writing for Marvel Comics, where he took his horror writing skills and began applying it to superheroes. That's why you get humanized superheroes that are not like Batman and Superman, who, while iconic, are not very humanized. You get Spider-Man with his massive inferiority complex when he doesn't have his mask on, and his smart-ass mouth when he does. And you get the Hulk, who is filled with inner rage, doesn't know how to communicate, and smashes everything that he sees. Those things are just parables from horror comics. Now, the reason I mention him is this. So you guys know who he is. Who knows who Jack Kirby is? Okay, I got a couple of these. Okay. In creative endeavors, especially when it's something like comic books, and it requires illustration, the creation comes in two parts. How many writers are in here? Okay, fewer, but there's plenty of them in here. How many of you writers want to do something and do a comic instead of just writing? Or TV or something like that? A few of you. Okay, gotcha. So when you guys do that, you're going to be collaborating with other team of people. You're going to be collaborating with visual creators. And they are just as much a part of creating those characters as possible. Does anybody know who Bill Finger is? Does anybody know who Bob Kane is? Okay, this is another big legendary thing, just like Jack Kirby and Lee, and I'll explain why I'm mentioning this in just a second. Bill Finger was one of the original Batman creators, so was Bob Kane. Bob Kane was the writer. Bill Finger was the artist. Bill Finger created the Joker. He created the Penguin. He created Robin. Okay? Until about 2 years ago, he got absolutely no credit, no payment, no nothing. Jack Kirby died extraordinarily poor, still working, with a pile of all of his originals after feuding with Jim Lee for 3 decades because Jim Lee had worked into the contracts to basically screw Kirby over, okay, and didn't get all of the creative rights on him. This has continued on forward. There are other creators like Tom. Anybody watch the Venom movie? Oh, I got lots of hands on that one. Do you guys know who created him?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, like this. The creator of Venom was Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane, for about 2 decades, was considered the golden boy of comics. He also created Spawn. Anything this guy touched, the book immediately shot up through the roof, got all these sales. He created the character Venom and actually sued Marvel Comics and lost over a 5-year lawsuit trying to retain his creative rights. That environment is the kind of environment that happens whenever you're trying to go out and be creative. It's hostile. And the person that is there to protect you is nobody else besides yourself. The enthusiasm to know that you're there because you love it, the enthusiasm to know that you're there because you want to do it, that is what's going to carry you forward through those things. Okay? When you're going out and you're trying to be creative, you have a couple of different paths to choose from. You have the path where you have to break down through the gatekeepers. You guys know what a gatekeeper is?
Yep.
You do. What's a gatekeeper?
Oh, a gatekeeper is basically a person that just keeping people out of any kind of hobby TV shows or anything that's close to that. You have to know this thing in order to become that thing, just like a fan.
Right. One of the Harvey Weinstein. That's a great old topic. Everybody knows what's going on with that. The legendary gatekeeper, that guy gets what he wants, or you don't get in. There are gatekeepers in every industry. Todd McFarlane, the person I just talked to you about, the guy who created Venom. He's one of like the fathers of Image Comics. He has to be the most successful comic creator ever, besides maybe Stan Lee. But the difference is Todd owns his work. Todd is so rich, he owns a hockey team. Okay? Stan Lee didn't make the same decisions. Most of his stuff is owned by Marvel Comics, and he basically became their banner boy at a certain point. Now, the reason I'm showing you guys all these history lessons and going over what a gatekeeper is that is the oldest and most traditional path to becoming a creator. And this does not matter if you're a comic artist, it doesn't matter if you're a writer, it doesn't matter if you're trying to write America's next most awesome American novel or whether you're trying to write a script. Somebody else has an infrastructure, a distribution, and you want them to take your stuff, make it big, and send it out to the world. Okay? Those are what the gatekeepers are. Todd McFarlane applied to Marvel Comics over 332 times before they let him draw for them. He actually kept all of them. Pulls them out of his desk. He's even got YouTube videos where he reads some of them off. So does Jim Lee. Jim Lee runs DC Comics. Same kind of thing. He's got like 280 of them. It took them years of trying to get in over and over and over, and years of disappointment, years of going to conventions, years of tracking down editors in bathrooms, all those things to try to get their shot. That is the gatekeeper method. Okay. One of the other ways to get through and become a creative and somebody where you're going to make enough money to take care of yourself is to go an independent route, to take care of these things yourselves. Okay? The internet has allowed that to happen. What I mean by that is this. Anybody here read web comics? Oh, lots of hands that time. Okay, great. There is nothing stopping any one of you from putting a webcomic out online right now whatsoever. Not a single thing except for your own enthusiasm and your own effort. Each one of you could be doing it. Each one of you could be collaborating. It doesn't matter. You can put it out there. Millions of people could see it. Millions of people could ignore it. However, as evolution always happens, when webcomics started, it was a handful of guys making websites. Scott Kurtz is one of them. He runs PvP Online. I just forgot, blinked on the other dude's name. But the point is that when they started, they were the only webcomics out there. They got millions of readers like this. Okay? And they started popping up all over the place. They put ads on the website. They were making tons of money. Well, gatekeepers show up in everything. It always evolves to that. Theirs changed by the software all of us use to use the internet. Does anybody have pop-up blockers on their computer? Everybody does. Okay? You do it because you don't want to see those ads. If you don't see those ads, the guy with the web comics page doesn't get paid. So they had to figure out ways of changing their stuff. They had to change their business model. They had to change how they do it. One of the biggest web comics that was out there right from the beginning was called Evil Incorporated. It was a story about a corporation that ran all the evil stuff in the world. Their employees would go out and rob banks. Their employees would go out and try to take over third world countries and fail and succeed, etc. Very funny comic. But when pop-up blockers started blocking all the ads, he went from making enough money to feed his family to paying every month for his web traffic. And it happened quick. And it happened to all of them. He changed by using Patreon. The guys who run Penny Arcade, they changed by merchandising and creating their own conventions. PAX is a huge series of conventions. Happens in Australia, happens down south, happens up in Washington. They started figuring out other ways to make money. Now, I've probably bored all of you guys because I'm talking about money and how to get that stuff to work. But here's the thing. If you don't consider these things, and if you do not understand that they are connected, whether you want them to be or not, the dream of being an artist that's in a closet that doesn't see the rest of the world and doesn't have to go out there and promote themselves, that person stays in that closet and it's their mom's closet. Okay? In 2007, I had spent a decade working a job I hated. And the reason I did it is because my parents needed my help. They needed me to take care of them. I went from getting jobs as a storyboarder and running the visual arts clinic at the college and all these other stuff and focusing on my career to changing gears, getting a job I hated to help take care of them. It was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life, in my opinion. 2007, that job led me all the way to another state where I was still taking care of them remotely. And I hated every minute of it. I would go to work cursing myself, and I would come to home cursing myself. The reason why is because I wasn't creating. I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't letting my voice out. It got so bad that in 2007, I collapsed. Not from mental fatigue. I literally worked so hard, I gave myself cancer. After a bunch of shenanigans, I ended up in San Francisco, where a little doctor sat at the end of my bed and explained to me that if I wanted to live or die, that I had to make a choice before the treatment began. I had to stay positive. Being on your deathbed, and my first child was born 4 weeks before this, and I wanted to get to know her. I didn't want her to grow up without a dad. I'm sitting on my deathbed. I don't know a damn thing what to do, and here comes this doctor saying, stay positive. Stay positive or you're dead. It's easy to make a choice when somebody makes it that clear and that clean. So to stay positive, I made myself several promises. Promised myself I'd get to know my daughter long enough to see her graduate kindergarten. Promised myself I'd rebuild this old motorcycle that I inherited from my father. And I promised myself that my comic books would see print. It took me a year or longer to deal with what put me in the hospital, and I did survive. Level 4 cancer to cancer-free. I had to take 17 interfecal, which is spinal taps, where they use a syringe and put the medicine in my body. It was painful, and I do not know how to describe what it's like when people hit your nerve center that sends lightning all the way through the bottom of your body. It's horrible. But the promises I made to myself were important to me. I allowed me to stay positive. Excuse me. When I got out and I started making my comics again, I still had to go to that crappy job. I'm still doing a job right now. It's not my favorite thing. I don't make enough money off the comic books to take care of my family, but I do make money at it. Every single time I get another page done, every single time I get another issue out, every single time I get through Kickstarter and get another book released, I feel more whole. My kids got to know their father. I had another kid. My life changed completely, but the moment that it changed was because that doctor told me I had to stay positive or die. And each one of those pages is how I allowed myself to do that. The reason why I started this off by telling you guys that if your enthusiasm is going to be is because did not get me through that. Does not get me to, even though I am tired from working all day, to get me to stay awake just another hour to get one more panel done. Doesn't get me to finish a script that I've been working on for months. Keith has given me crap because there's a script I've been working on for a long time that he wants me to finish. And he's completely right. And it's because I want it to be perfect. But perfect doesn't exist. Finished exists. Having enough energy to just get a little bit of it done at a time and get through it at the end of the day is important. Because now I have to do it while carrying my kids with me and my wife with me and all my other responsibilities. You guys have a different path that you can choose from. If you guys want to go that independent route, or if you want to go through the gatekeepers, it does not matter. But your responsibilities now are different than they're going to be when you're 25, 22, 40, which you probably all think is older than the dust, but that's fine. Your responsibilities are going to be completely and totally different then. If I had not felt guilty about my parents and stayed with what I was doing, I turned down a job in an animation studio up in Auburn for that. I did that to myself because I felt I had to take care of them. Now, most of you are probably not in that same situation. Who knows? Both my parents were addicts. One of them was a meth cook. And they're idiots. And I hold a lot of anger for that I made that decision, just like my other siblings did. And we took care of them. And it backfired 6 ways. And Sunday, they still died the way I did not want them to die. It was pointless. Because sometimes you have to take care of yourself. Sometimes your enthusiasm and what you want in life has to come first. And the sooner you make that decision, the more powerful that enthusiasm is. The more effect it has. Who here has projects they haven't finished?
Yeah.
Oh, it's everybody. Who here has projects they finished? Okay, that's awesome. Who here has books that they finished? Who here submitted those books to a gatekeeper? Oh, all the hands went down. Who here got those things printed themselves and tried to sell them? No more hands. Huh. Is that because you guys haven't spent 10 minutes on the internet finding out how to get something printed? Keith has a sheet that I gave him a long time ago that has a list of publishers you can go to. It has a list of places where you get stuff printed. I know he's got it. I just looked it up to make sure it was still shared with him so that you guys could ask him for it. But no. Everybody knows who Deadpool is, right? Oh, everybody. Deadpool is one of the most famous characters in comic books. He did not exist until the 90s. He was created by a punk. Everybody knows this guy's a punk. When he was 18, he managed to get a job in comic books through some very shady means, but it was all enthusiasm, and I respect the hell out of it. Was he a punk? Did he turn things upside down? Yes, he did. Was he a jerk to a lot of different people? Yes, he was. But that enthusiasm, 18. When he was 18, he was in a Levi's ad because he submitted to Levi's when they put out a commercial saying they want people with interesting jobs who wear Levi's. Okay, I'll tell him I'm a comic book artist. He got on there when he was just barely in the industry. He'd only been doing a book for a couple months. That, just being on there, it got played on MTV back when MTV actually was awesome and like the thing that every teenager in the world watched. And it exploded his career. It exploded his career to the point where every single month he was selling 6 to 7 million issues of his books. He's the guy that walked away from his Marvel Comics contract, flipped them off, and gathered a bunch of other creators and started Image Comics. Now, they kicked him out later because, like I said, he's a punk. But that's another story. Who here is almost 17? And you guys haven't submitted anything. Do you think it's because he's more talented? I know that's not true. He can't draw feet. And he's been in trouble because people have actually proved that he copied other comic book artists by tracing. You know what the difference was? He finished. He gave a damn enough about himself to get stuff submitted to a gatekeeper. Back then, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have web comics. Now, he does everything himself through his own studio. At one point, he actually had an entire floor of a skyscraper and like 300 employees. Now, that does not mean that is your path. It does not mean that you need to be a jerk to the creators. You should learn how to draw feet if you're an artist. But what it does mean, the first step in all of this, whether you go to a gatekeeper or whether you do it on your own, is to feel like you are worth it and to have enough enthusiasm not to, Every one of you guys can have what you want, but it's going to be a knife fight the entire way. And that takes a lot of enthusiasm. And the key to it is you guys loving what you do. For a long time, I thought I didn't deserve to be able to go and do the things I wanted to do, and I felt that I didn't deserve to be very successful at it. I was mad at myself for giving up. I was mad at myself for making that stupid choice. And I had to face up to the fact that I made that choice, forgive myself, and then start it again. And as soon as I did, I got happier. I've sold thousands of books. I love going to conventions and outselling the other creators there. I love doing that. Not because I keep track of what everybody else is doing, but because it feels the first time you sell something of yours, the very first time, is going to change your perspective on everything. Has anybody here ever sold something? I got a couple of them. That's awesome. How did it feel?
Felt great, honestly.
Felt great. Felt awesome. Why?
Because I can actually get some profit from just selling some things that are not really worth to me.
That's part of it. What about you?
Because it feels like someone actually wants to look at your work.
That's good too. What about you?
It gives you a sense of accomplishment because finally that you've done something paid off.
Yeah. All those things are a part of it. The very first time I sold something, I had no idea what was going to happen. I had accidentally filled out a form and paid for a table. When I say accidentally, I'm sitting at work and I'm really mad about what's going on at work. And I was browsing and I saw, oh, SatCon is coming up. Oh, they have tables for sale. They never have tables for sale. I'm never inside this website fast enough. Click, click, purchase. What did I just do? I had no books ready and I had 2 months. I got them printed. I paid way more than I should have to get them printed. Got them finished, got to the table. The very first con you go to where nobody knows who you are, nobody's seen you before, you've never talked to anybody, nobody has a clue. If you can sell 5 books by keeping your head up, talking to people, and getting them to come over and look at your stuff, if you can sell 5 of them, most comic artists that I know consider that an absolute success. Keith, how many did you sell your first con? 10. And I saw his table. His table was not ready. If I hadn't been there, he wouldn't have had a tablecloth. Okay? That morning, I was so nervous I was shaking. I was freaking out. I don't deserve to be here. What the hell am I doing here? I can't even believe I got these books even finished. Nobody's going to like these. I'm wasting my time, and I'm freaking out. I decide I'm going to get up and walk around and walk my nerves off. I go up to the front of the building where I decide I got to say something to somebody. So on the way to the bathroom, I saw a pirate. Nice beard. He said, "Are back." And I kept walking. I got back to my table. I sat down, tried to breathe out my nerves again. The door's open. 15 minutes later, that pirate comes up to my table. And while he's there, he goes, "What this book? What is this? Tell me about it. What here be it?" So after I understood what he said, which took me a second, I started pitching this book to him. This is Damage Inc. I had 2 books on my table, this and Inheritance. I'm not going to talk about Inheritance. It ended in a legal battle. That'll take like an hour to explain. But I talked to him about Damage. Damage is a story about friends who go out and they start a club hunting down supernatural creatures and superpowered superhumans for bounties. But they suck at it. Took me a while to figure out that I had to add that last back thing onto it to get people to laugh and interact with me. And it took me a while to understand that I had to get people to come to me. But this pirate is standing in front of me. I tell him what it's about. He's looking through it. He goes, "This book here be worth its weight in gold." He reached down into a little pocket he had on his side, and he put 5 gold coins down on my table. First book I sold to a pirate who paid in gold, pirate gold. That day I sold 35 books. It was a lot more than 5. A lot more than I expected, because 10 minutes before that table, I didn't deserve to be there. I didn't deserve to be there when I clicked the button. And I didn't deserve to be there for the 10 years that I punished myself for making the stupid decision to take care of my parents instead of taking care of me. I was doing the meh. I was the one who wanted it, thought about it 24/7, but didn't submit anything. Because I didn't know how. I didn't have internet and resources or people to tell me. Now, every time I go to a convention, I bring that sheet I mentioned that I shared with Keith. Because at every single convention, there's at least one 12-year-old who's walking around looking like a scared duck, trying to get up the courage to talk to the creators at the tables. And I bring those sheets for them. Because if somebody had given that to me or talked to me the way I'm talking to you guys now, maybe I would have made a different decision. Maybe I would have given a crap enough about me to work on me. Maybe I wouldn't have been so meh. Oh, I had a huge ego about my artwork. Huge ego. I loved my artwork. I still love my artwork. I'm upset that I forgot the cable, because one of my favorite things to do is to show everybody my artwork. I love it. I am a ham. I admit this. I have an epic level ego when it comes to how badass I think I am. But none of that matters if I'm not putting my stuff out there and competing to do it. If your art is not going to make some kind of revenue, then it's a hobby. That's okay. If that's what you want. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people do both. But in my head, I'm Vincent van Gogh, the idiot who never sold a painting his entire life, even though he tried, who had a horrible life, but kept turning it into beautiful things and wanted to sell his artwork, but couldn't. So every convention that I've ever gone to, I've actually made my table money or more. One of my favorite ones, in one afternoon, I sold, in the space of 2 hours, I sold 100 books, which was insane. That was the craziest afternoon I've ever had. I've been very lucky and I'm very grateful that I've been able to do that. Now I want to do more. I want to do and sell it through other things. And each time I look at another way to do it or another place to share it, it comes with its own rules. I got to learn it all over again. And the only thing that pushes me through it is my own enthusiasm, my own planning, and my own ability to get it done, because I'm not going through gatekeepers. When you guys are out there and you're trying to get people to work with you to make money, let me break you down distribution. Because what I was doing in that job, I was running warehouses. That's distribution. Huge warehouses, like 400,000 square feet, multi-million dollars of inventory, making corporations millions of dollars. I was not making millions of dollars. They pay the people in distribution nothing, because it's something nobody wants to deal with. When you're selling a book, whether it's a comic book or a novel, it doesn't matter. Here's how it works. The store that's going to sell it is going to charge $5 for that book. They paid whoever brought them the book $2.50. That $2.50 is now going to get split again between the creator and the distribution group who got the book over to the place. If you're lucky, that's a good contract. Amazon takes a lot more. That's why they make it so easy to sell through it. Those beginning contracts are very difficult. In comic books, it's called Diamond. Diamond is the one who literally, through some huge mistakes of Marvel, owns 100% of the distribution in the United States. All of it. If you want your comic book inside a comic shop, guess what? Diamond has to carry it. And to get into Diamond, you have to be able to sell 40,000 books, 20,000 books, whatever it is. Can't do it without them, so how are you supposed to do it? You got to go out and prove it on your own. There's all kinds of other complicated ways into it. But the point is, every single time somebody touches the book, it gets split, and it gets split, and gets split. You sell a $5 book, and you're going to get a quarter out of it, if you're lucky. A lot of guys I know are actually negative whenever they sell stuff through the shops. But they do it because they want their books out there. At the cons, it's different. I print a book for $2 and I sell it for $5. I just made $3. It's a lot easier to pay my table cost that way. Okay? There are different paths and different ways to do it. But like I said, to be able to figure it out, you have to carry yourself through it with enthusiasm. You're going to meet people who have enthusiasm for your work. Sometimes it's false. They just want certain things. If Keith hasn't talked to you guys about collaboration, it's something you have to do with a certain level of professionalism and a certain level of care. I'm sure he's gone over it. You guys, everybody in here has got somebody they've collaborated with at some time or another. It all has to get split. If two people created it, the average comic book takes a penciler, an inker, a letterer, a colorist, I'm missing one, cover artist, right, so 5 people. And a month for each person. Those comic books get made way in advance. I'm the only guy on my book. I'm a little slower than those 5 guys, obviously. I don't split it with anybody, and I don't want to split it with anybody. For a while, I had a publisher. For a while, I had a collaborator. That's that inheritance I was telling you about. And I got tired of splitting it. I got tired of being the guy carrying most of the workload, because I was the penciler and the inker and the colorist and the letterer. So, yes, sir.
I was going to question, is there a quicker way of doing it, or that's like only one of the best methods of distributing a book?
Okay, so because of that cancer, I hear like crap. Speak a little louder.
Oh, okay. What I was originally trying to say is there a way, quicker way for one person to do all those roles? Like instead of taking a month, it would take like 2 weeks or less.
The short answer is yes, but you have to pay for it, one way or the other. You have choices to make. You can do what, there's another artist in our group named Eli. Eli is a monster. Eli tosses out pages so fast. He gets 100-page manga books done in the time it takes me to do one issue of 20 some odd pages. His style is a simple style. He does do gray tones on it, but he does cell shading. All of those things, all of those techniques, you can have techniques that either drive you towards efficiency and speed, or they can drive you towards artistic quality. You get to find where your voice is inside of that. I could simplify damage and draw it manga style. No, I can't. I'm lying. I couldn't do it. If I tried, I would just end up doing it the way I do it anyway. I would end up with lines all over the place. I would end up with all kinds of shading, and I've learned to do it that way. I've made myself faster because I went digital, but I don't have original art to sell. That's what I have to give up. A lot of guys sell their original art pages for a lot of money. I can't do that. This is my art studio. It's a Surface. I have Clip Studio on here because it's made for illustration. It's made for comic books. You tell it to, it'll create all your pages and your formats for you, and then you just go back in and start creating the artwork. Some of the pages in Inheritance, I kid you not, some of the books I had in Inheritance had pages that had hundreds of levels to create lighting effects because it was a horror book. And I had to do all kinds of stuff to make them perfect. Once again, perfect is not as important as finished. And those books took a long time. Clip Studio is made for illustrators. And it has all kinds of ways for you to access techniques that can speed those things up. If I did not have a day job and I was only concentrating on this, I guarantee that I'd have more than one book done a month in Manga Studio, or Clip Studio now. It can be done that quick because I've taken the time to learn it. So yes, but you gotta earn those methods. You gotta learn them, you gotta practice them, and you gotta figure it out. Okay. Now, does anybody else have any questions? Because I've been talking, I want to hear some of you guys talk. Yes, sir.
What kind of art style do you do?
Style? I'm a comic artist. I'm an illustrator. That's the style that I do. What I'm doing right now, my comic books are gray tone, and they have a horror feel to them with very, very, very expression faces. I love gunfights. I love monsters, and I love throwing my guys through walls and torturing them. Yes, sir.
Have you ever thought of about branching out and trying new things other than comics?
I've done them. I've illustrated for magazines. I've illustrated for movies, doing storyboards, things like that. The one that I love doing is comics. I do comics more because I love it. You can make so much more money designing stuff for movies by staying on model, doing those designs, and doing storyboards. They have gatekeepers. And if you want to go that route, go that route. You don't have to be the guy that goes and does everything yourself, create your own thing. If that's not what you need to do to feel happy, go do it. I got really tired of working for other people where they say, do this, so I do it. And then they say, that's not what I meant. I have an anger issue. It makes it so that when people do that, I have trouble maintaining my professionalism. So in my case, doing some of those end up a source of frustration. I'd rather work on my own. What's up?
Oh, I was going to ask, what are one of your pet peeves when it comes to illustrating comics or when someone else does it?
When I'm working with someone else? How much time do we have?
Should we talk about Inheritance?
God. My biggest pet peeve is this. Give me a finished script. And when I hand you pencils, make changes. Do not wait until I am done with the book and it is inked and it is colored and it is gray toned and it is lettered to then say, oh, this shadow, less than 1 millimeter long, needs to be half as long. One of that collaborator gave me a list of 105 things on a 52-page book that he wanted changed after I was done. That was the last straw. That was what started the fight that turned it into a legal nightmare. So when I'm working with somebody else, I want the respect of my time to know what is worth working on to change and what is not, and have enough respect to know the process so that you bring those changes up earlier on, not when somebody is done. That'd be like me going back after I illustrated the book and said, dude, your story sucks. How many writers would love that? We're finished, but your story's wrong. You got to go back and redo it. So,
do you have, what's a way to tell for yourself when you're making changes that are, you're trying to make it perfect, but it really doesn't make a huge difference? Is there a way to tell that for yourself, or?
No one can answer that for you. That line's different for each person. A lot of times I'm like, oh, this book is brilliant. It's perfect. I'm done. Awesome. I printed it. Oh, man. I missed like 8 things. I hate myself. And nobody's going to notice it. Nobody does notice it. So here's what the best answer for you is. Meet your deadline. And if something needs to be changed, but your deadline's tomorrow, do what you can. Deadline's a deadline. Nobody wants to work with somebody who can't meet their deadline. Even if you go to a gatekeeper, the first way to get bounced out and thrown out as an amateur is to miss your deadline. The way to piss off all your crowdfunders, miss your deadline.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, how would you deal with criticism?
Criticism comes in 2 forms. The people who are trying to tell you something that you can improve upon, and the people you're not willing to listen to. And they're usually the same person, and it's your damn ego doing it. Even somebody who's being a complete jerk, walking up to you, go, my kid can do better. Can you be more specific? I'd love to hear about it. There's a difference between somebody being rude to you and somebody trying to be giving you criticism, though. You just kind of have to figure that part out as you're working with them. But most people, when they're giving you some insight, that is something I should have talked about. Who had a question?
Are you self-taught or did you go to school?
I want to say both, but I would probably be lying if I did. I went to all the high school classes that I could, and I went to my college courses at a community college. I got into Cal Arts, but I couldn't afford it. So I didn't get a chance to go through all of that. And in all honesty, both in my high school classes, I didn't turn in a single assignment all the way through high school. 4 years of art classes, I think I turned in 2 assignments the whole time. And the rest of the time I was just drawing, and my teacher just let me do it. Maybe that wasn't her best decision, but she didn't know what else to teach me. I ended up becoming self-taught as a result of it. And honestly, 100% honest, most of the classes that I did manage to take, it's just time to practice. I was in figure drawing. Figure drawing is just looking at somebody and drawing them. That's it. It's time to practice. When you go off to get educated, and if you choose to go to art school, I got to go to 1 semester of Cal Arts before I couldn't afford it. Okay, 1 semester. It was all practicing. All of it. I was practicing in figure drawing. I was practicing in animation. I was practicing in visual arts. It didn't matter. It was all practice. There is nobody that works in the artistic world that goes, where's your resume and where's your degree? Oh, you don't have one? Blow off. No, they want to see your portfolio. They don't care where you learned it. They care how badass you are. Some people develop better in one group rather than another. And if you can afford to go to art school, go. You'll love every minute of it. The 1 semester I was there blew my damn mind.
we've got about 1 minute left, so
dang.
hopefully you got something from this, learned something from it. I would only add one more thing, because we are a collaborative group here. Please communicate. I don't care if it's the smallest damn detail whatsoever, right? We're all in the preliminary stages of these books, right? Artists, if you have a question for the writers, what did you mean by this instruction? Communicate it, okay? Artists, when you get done with the penciling, go ahead and say, hey, what do you think about this, right? Keep that communication line going, and you will be successful,
Yep.
okay?
Take care of them when they're molehills, not mountains.
Exactly.
Or you will be the guy that get asked to change how you illustrate that guy's costume all the way through a whole series. You missed his belt buckle. Go back and do it all. Yes, ma'am.
Instagram account?
I do. I hate Instagram. I hate Instagram a lot. But he's got links to all my web pages on that page, and I suggest you guys take a look at them. I will answer any question anybody has if you guys email me or message me through them. I love answering those questions, and I love talking about it. I do this at every convention that Scatter goes to as much as possible. So please, anybody who wants to see what I'm up to or wants to ask me questions, get those papers from Keith so that you can see where my links are.
I'll have the links and all that stuff for you tomorrow in class, so, for sure. All right, hey, thank you very much, man. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys. Ask me. I didn't have anybody to answer my questions. Okay? Ask me.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's like a share.